All right. Onyeka is asking you to be that man, to look in the mirror. Man in the mirror effect, where you really need to x-ray yourself and look at yourself and see if indeed you are effecting that change that you want to see in the world, because the change really does begin with you. And we try to look at the change administration and see their programs, their policies, their campaign promises, how they're putting their money where their mouth is and living up to the expectations that they have so eloquently created and left Nigerians just hoping for the very best of governance from them. And I did mention that on the show today we'll be looking at the area of job creation, employment, and how this administration is helping to tackle poverty. I know on the roundtable we're looking at social intervention programs of the government, trader money, 5,000 naira to poor and vulnerable households, school feeding program, JIP, and a few other initiatives of this government that they have seen as brilliant ideas to help alleviate poverty. Quite unfortunate that Brookings and the world is not just seeing the result yet, because we're, poverty capital of the world, unfortunately. We'll be looking at some of their policy design, their programs so far, to see how they're tackling all of this. My co-anchor, who says my favorite co-anchor, is here. He's going to call himself.
I am your favorite co-anchor.
You are welcome. Shamsuddin is not listening, so let's go with that.
Okay. I'm sure he's probably listening somewhere.
You're welcome, Razak.
Good evening. Good evening, Abuja. It's good to be here again. Oh, it's good to be here again. And when Project sent this particular topic and said, look, this is what we're tackling, I said, look, we'll do a bit of research on it. And when we researched, and what we found was, a bit alarming. And the fact that some of the policies that have been put in place by the government, they don't seem to have actually done their job, or jobs, if you will, because you find the Jeep loan, the 5,000 naira idea from the Abacha loot, whatnot, and all of these things. I'm thinking to myself that, how is it that we keep our poverty index, or our rankings on the poverty index keeps getting poorer and poorer? What is going on?
87 million people in extreme poverty. It says that for every minute, 6 people apparently are getting into that poverty racket, and it's not a very pleasant one.
Every minute.
Yeah, quite ugly. Well, good thing we have with us in the studio Mr. Paul Alaje, an economist, to help us wade through this and understand what we are doing right and wrong and where we stand today. Mr. Paul, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me.
Delighted to have you in the studio. So we have the Brookings Institution. They published a grim report about on world poverty clock data, where Nigeria apparently poverty rate is growing faster than that of India. India is about 6 times our population, but our rate is growing pretty fast, and it should be worrisome for any government, particularly a government that is doing so much in the area of social intervention program, trying to alleviate poverty, trying to get to the very poor and vulnerable household, looking at schemes and initiatives and ideas to see how we can make it pretty easy for them. I don't envy them how they would take this report at the moment, but you also start to wonder about what we are doing or not doing right for this result. Or is it something that would need some time, maturity time, before we get to start to see results?
You see, topics like this are really very difficult for economics, particularly economics that is independent. You are not in government, and you are not working for anybody out of government. But you see, when you look at some reports come from international community, it is quick for us to say, oh no, when Brookings report came out, I talked about it in about 11 million houses, and some persons quickly debunked it. But you could see when the British Prime Minister came, that was the first thing she talked about, which means, well, you may not accept it, but that would have impact on the kind of foreign direct investment you have in your country. That is what the world will check before investing. It seems Germany and Britain has already concluded that Nigeria perhaps have decided to be the headquarters of the world. So it came as surprise, and not so much of surprise to us as an organization. And I will tell you why. We are supporting the poor people with 5,000 naira. If you have calculator, you can press how much is 5,000 naira in today's dollar. How much is it? Does anybody have? If you check the figure it gives you, divide it by 30. How much will that give you? Okay, so if you are looking at 10,000 naira, you'll be having around $27. If you divide that by 2, you'll be having about $14. And $14 divided by 30 to know how much it is per day, you see that you are still below poverty line. And these are monies given to the so-called poor and the vulnerable to come out of poverty line. And you see, if you have capital, let's go to Economics 101. You have capital of 5,000 naira to do business in a month, or 10,000 naira to do business in 2 months. With the kind of Nigeria we have, treasury bill rate is about 10 to 12%. Thereabout, I hear the rate is going to increase recently, or just increase. Say 13%. Be charitable. Say 20%. Which is not possible. So at the end of a year, you are having 20% interest on 10,000 naira. At the end of the year, you are having 11,000 naira. You are still perpetually inside poverty line. So what should we be doing? Be giving people skill. Listen, if you give me a fish, whether it's Titus or stockfish or fresh fish or catfish, I will finish it. But when you show me how to catch a fish and you buy me hook and the line, don't worry. It's a matter of time.
Equipment required.
Equipment required. I will start selling fish myself. I will be the fisherman. What we need to do, nothing is wrong with what government is doing, but the real emphasis of bringing people out of poverty is not by giving 5,000 or 10,000 naira. Countries have brought people out of poverty. The question is, how did China bring 200,000 people out of poverty? What did they do correctly? Average of 20 million people out of poverty on an annual basis. What did China do that we are not doing correctly? Listen, China understood the huge population that they have, and you know the truth, for people to survive there must be consumption. Consumption in clothing, consumption in hair, consumption in shoes, consumption in food, etc., etc. How do we begin to produce these things based on our priority and export the rest for the rest of the world? That's the direction of government. So China understood that if they keep buying from the rest of the world, they will be the slave of the world. And at some point, when the thought of China comes to your mind, when the policy started, and you are looking for the name that was synonymous with China, it was fake.
Yeah.
Today, the name that is synonymous, the substandard, the name synonymous with China is production hub of the world. Let us start anyhow. Let us start. See, if you don't produce, you will keep consuming. You can have all the palliative measures, you can have all the safety net program. People that already just gone through 5,000 naira, 60,000 naira a year cannot bring them out. Because 60,000 naira a year is what is required for them to earn in a month. It cannot bring them out. While this is going on, it could be a short-term measure. Can we train these people? Can we train them on how to, turn, but this requires a lot of government policy, to turn their cotton farms, to how to sell it to factories, textile firms that will use them as input, or the conversion firm that will sell what textile industry requires. Can we teach them all of that? Can we empower these people? Can we say that we want to add at least 5,000 megawatt renewable energy to our power supply, which does not require distribution, generation, transmission, and all the missions, which does not require them. In India today, how did people come out of poverty in India? Because India understood that when you solve the problem of power and you employ women, you will have a lot of reduction in poverty line. So there are several institutions that decided to support women in India. What were they doing for them? The solar panel you see, they were actually arranged. So they put women in place to fix some of these things that we see. And they were working manual labor. A lot of them were paid. Today, if you graduate, if you work as a graduate and you're an Indian in India, you earn not less than $1,000 a month. You know people that earn that in Nigeria? PhD, and if you have another degree after PhD. That's what we pay here. But because an economy that have decided to grow itself from ICT to infrastructure support by government with power, we go further. We go a lot. A lot way to employ people. Let me give you an instance. Let's assume the administration, rather than putting, about $300 million on, say, social program. If you have that in 10 months, you have about $3.2 billion. And you said we want to use it to solve a 50,000 housing gap. You know what you need? 50,000 housing gap. You'll be looking for people to work for you. You don't get it. You'll be looking for people. Because the so-called poor person will be the one to fetch water. The so-called poor person will be the one to mix sand and cement. The so-called poor person. Now there is dignity in labor. They are going to earn. If government make that a policy that is sustainable according to the promise of government when government was coming in place, the promises, nothing is wrong with them. They were nice promises. But do we have political will to implement them? Or is the burden of Nigeria concentrated at the federal government, not too much, which could be distracting? So I don't think we will have a government who don't want to leave people out of poverty. I will not support the argument. I believe there are sincere intentions to lift people out of poverty, to make people become prosperous, whether this government, past government, or future government. As an economist, I can tell you that people come to office because they also want to be remembered. Nobody will love to be remembered for creating poor people. Nobody. Irrespective of your religion, irrespective of the region you come from, your ethnic group, it doesn't matter. You want to build an economy that people will remember you for. But this is where political will is required. President Obama saw how Americans were when America as a country was losing jobs to Asia as a continent, and asked questions. Where are our jobs? They said our jobs that was formerly with Ford is now with Toyota, is now with Nissan. How do we capture our job back? That was what President Obama asked as the leader. And he made policy to ensure that commercial banks, the big banks in America, supported Ford to change the production line of Ford vehicles. So it was a loan, single-digit interest loan, over a long period of time. It is not government that was borrowing. It was government that empowered. The loans were not given to states like we gave to our state government. What production activity has come out of those productions? Out of all of that? Well, it's like borrowing money to go and eat. We have built people's house. Are they not back in worse conditions? How do we empower private sector? Locally made? Let me give you some shocking figures. You're a beautiful woman here. Do you have any attachment on your head or not? Not less than 60 million women in Nigeria today carry foreign hair. Not less than 60 million. How much do you think it costs? Whether synthetic or human hair. We have 1.5 companies producing this in Nigeria. He's in a beautiful shirt, nice shirt. We don't have production line to produce shirtings. We don't. And when we even have, they cannot compete because of cost of production. Nigerian Manufacturer Association will tell you what they are going through. So we need deliberate policy as much as we give to the poor, which is nice, but it is not that we bring them out of their poverty. It is not handout. Handout has never brought people out of poverty. Your handout must be big enough and become capital some sort.
Some people say it's a short-term measure to just, cushion the effect, more like a palliative.
Nice. But what are we now doing in the long term to bring them out? Because if you do short-term measure for them in a year, and there are no deliberate policy to expand output, to expand national production, how will they come out?
Because if you look at the fact that Nigeria has actually, since this present government actually earmarked 500 billion from 2016 to now, with the idea of taking
Yes.
out poverty from Nigeria, and we don't see what the 500 billion. Although people can point to schemes like the Empower scheme, which has gotten relative success, acceptance and success rate, and you look at that, but it doesn't.
Acceptance is different from success rate.
Well, there are people that, based on the report we made on Buharimeter on this the Empower scheme, a couple of people found it very useful in terms of finishing school and then getting something to actually do that is actually constructive. So you see that, but it does not reflect in our poverty rankings globally. So I'm asking, is it that the government is implementing reforms or policies at the wrong time with the wrong people, or what exactly? Where exactly is
but
the government getting it
even
wrong?
completely different. This is empowering people with loans to start up something and grow the business beyond them. Even though lots of people are saying, how much can you do with 10,000 naira? But I bet you the man who sells dates on the street would value 10,000 naira to continue his business.
Let's pick up the argument. The man that sells what?
Dates.
How many will he have to sell before he can become prosperous?
But
So should he
isn't
be
it relative?
selling? No, listen. Should he be selling? Perhaps. This truth is, the policy is nice, but can it bring people out of poverty? There is a policy that will sustain people in poverty. It's different from a policy that will bring people out of poverty.
Okay.
So if you are giving them such, it will sustain them, but it's still in poverty. But policy that will bring them out of poverty. You see, Nigerians over the years have shied away from the truth. Fixed power. The same argument we had with President Obasanjo when he was in office, the same we have with President Yaradua, the same we have with President Jonathan, we are still having with President Buhari.
I remember
fixed power. When you fix power supply, and Nigeria could generate between 50,000 to 80,000 megawatts, most of which we concentrate in our factories, in our industries. The truth is, you are going to have more jobs created. Once more jobs are created, new human beings will feel it. There will be construction. As construction is going on, you don't need special skill to carry block from one point to another. That person start learning by observing. Then he could become a mason by observing. He could learn from people. Then you have empowered him with skill, which you can't take away from him anymore. So what you need is skill and an amount that is huge enough for people to deliver themselves from what? From poverty. So if you are giving them funds, it's okay. You are just telling them that don't go below a certain level of poverty, but you are still in the poverty bracket. And I just showed you, you are looking at $60 a day, 60,000 times 360. That will give you how much they need to earn in a month. What we are giving them is even up to that. Even at 10,000 naira a month is $27 a day. And you are talking about $27 a month, and you are talking about $60. So you need to give them more than 20,000 naira. By implication, we are paying people minimum wage to be poor, 18,000 naira, which is far below that. Even the minimum wage is paid for people to remain poor. So we need deliberate policy to lift people out of poverty. And the truth is, this policy is not going to come easy. It's not going to come by moving from one market to another. Those are short term. Those are policies local government should implement. They are at local level.
Not for the federal government.
But when you are looking at federal government, provide sustainable environment for investment to take place, for foreign investors. Look at different report published by Nigeria Bureau of Statistics. For the first time in recent history, Nigeria nosedive in growth, in GDP growth.
The second quarter of this year.
Second quarter of this year. Mark you, this year is the pre-election year. That has not happened in a long time. Yeah. Look at foreign investment into Nigeria. Investment flow also nosedived.
Even agriculture.
Look at agriculture. That was the thought I was going to mention. Also nosedived. Why? What do we think is wrong? Because it is not just for people to earn, it is for people to spend. Most of the people that earn 5,000 naira, whose pocket will that money earn? Where will it end? Where will their 5,000 naira end? Have we asked the question? They will perhaps say, oh, what I take before is Gary, I want to taste rice. So the man who is able to process paddy, which is scarce, and is a requirement for input in rice production. Paddy. The man that is able to process paddy into an output called rice that we eat is the one that has their money. But he's not a poor guy already. He's a rich man. But because he has value, he has value to give to the economy. So, moreover, why the poor has remained poor is a function of value and opportunity for them to exhibit what they have. Why do you say that? Oh, if you want to say there is unemployment, you say there is a lot of people are graduate, they don't have job. You don't say a lot of people have not gone to school, they don't have job, unconsciously. You said a lot of people are graduates, they don't have job. Watch this. What you are saying technically is that a lot of people have been equipped in different schools, polytechnic, university, colleges of education, but there is no opportunity for them to exhibit. Because when they exhibit, it becomes value addition, and when they bring value addition, the economy grows. You have gone to school, that's why you are doing what you are doing. Your organization wouldn't have picked just anybody. It is not your face that gave you what you are doing. It's your face plus what you have put in you. Listen, no employer loves you. No employer hates you. It is the value you can add for that employer. Labor is called derived demand. What labor can deliver. That's why you bring in labor. The same thing. So if you understand that people are unemployed because of skills, and that is why some graduates, you ask them to construct a sentence. I don't want to go into all of that. I don't want to go into issues that happen in Kaduna with teachers. That's not the focus. The focus here is how do we equip our people with modern skills. If somebody is able to use typewriter, that person is already defunct. That person is already endangered. And you say, I can use 10 typewriter. In fact, I can use one hand to be typing typewriter and use the leg. I can use short hand. The person is already endangered. He's an endangered species.
He's going extinct.
So you must tell me how you can do the same using computer. Tell me the apps you can use.
So that 5,000 naira. Let's take that particular scheme for instance. The government wants to give people 5,000 naira just like that. You think that should be attached to something kind of like what the Chinese did in 1980s, where they did a food for work scheme where they give you food and you work.
What was China's economy? Where was China's economy in 1980? How developed was China when they practiced that policy? Fast forward in the 2000s, when China started full-fledged production in the 90s. Can you compare the two? What they did in the 80s? Will China tell you that's what they want to do now? Do you get what I'm saying? Will China want to do the same thing now? Because they understood that it pays China to put you to tell you to go and work in a factory that is producing chairs. The only thing you do is to fix buttons. And you can fit 100,000 buttons in a month. Guess how much you earn? That's how you empower poor people. You give them skill. They keep doing the same thing that when you see the shirt you put on, you think it's a machine that put it on. Because the person becomes so skilled doing the same thing.
All right.
Specialization from division of labor.
All right. Buharimeter continues as we look at poverty and unemployment here in Nigeria with our guest Paul Alaje. And we're looking at quite a lot of the programs and policies introduced by this government to try and alleviate poverty in the country. Unfortunately, they're doing so much, but still keeping people within the poverty bracket, as defined by the world. It might seem like so much is going on here. I remember conversation we had around Kano State when they empowered people with stuff to become shoe polish, whatever. And people are like, why don't we have factories that can make some local sandals supported by the government and other stuff? Why just polish? How many people really go to roadside guys to polish them? But to that man who has that, he feels like empowered and he has something doing, because maybe the definition of poverty to him is different. But if you look at the bigger picture, the sum total of it all is still putting Nigeria in the negative, not in the good light, because it just shows that the man might not see himself as being extremely poor, but it's still not doing so well for the country at large. Now, let's look at other policies that they have. China loans in the area of infrastructure development, in the area of, I think, which one was yesterday? Was it the power sector or so? I don't want to call the right one, but I think I had it open where, modular refineries securing about 179.9 billion loan from China, 6 billion for infrastructure. You also want to look at then 4.5 billion for agricultural project. All of this, putting it together, is it not capable of boosting the economy and as such creating environment for jobs and employment?
Before I answer the question Africa should ask is, what did China do to have this money to lend? That's the question. China was in a financial mess a couple of decades ago. Today, China has now become the boss, giving interest-based loans. You can call it 20 years, you can call it 30 years, you can call it 40 years, you can call it low interest rates. But China is wise. Even if it's 0% interest rate,
it's a great gift.
You will still, it's not a gift.
Gift.
Yes, great gift. You're right. I will tell you where the first challenge you may have in paying China, and that is why some African countries are having issues with Chinese loans.
Zambia, for example.
I will tell you an instance. First, China made deliberate policy to devalue our currency so as to remain powerful in times of global producer, industrial producer. Guess what? China will never give you that loan and benchmark it on our currency. It will be based on the dollar. Because when it's on our currency, you are perhaps as weak as devalued your currency as much as they've devalued their currency. But China understand that for you to perpetually be under them, or Chinese government, it's for you to collect the money and base it on its national currency. And watch how soon you can pay. As I talk to you, June 30th, 2018, the national debt profile was 22.3 trillion naira. And you can see that on www.dmo.gov.ng. You can check that, you will see it there. If you now had all these loans, will it boost the economy? Possibly. Possibly, it could. You know, there were some loans we collected late last year to early this year, and we used some of them to refinance loans. You get what I'm saying? But when we put this directly into those sectors, you will see a number of impact. You will see some impact. But what we need that is sustainable is, how do we begin to generate output from this economy? We can do it. If we are collecting loans from China and it is end-to-end on how to get our power supply right, is good. One of the things this government is doing correctly is national rail network. It's good. How soon can we complete it? That's one very good project. One of the things that administration, as much as I criticize administration of President Jonathan, but the rail network between Kaduna and what's it called? Abuja. Really very good. It started, this administration did not say, oh, we're not the one that started it. Continued it. Very good. Those are things government are doing when you talk about infrastructure that we are talking about. And imagine when the project was going on, the number of jobs that would have created for the communities where they are situated. You cannot possibly bring somebody from Lagos and say the person should go and work on rail track in Kaduna. When he finishes, how will he, after he's done, how will he now sponsor himself or herself back to Lagos? But you use people within the community. In that way, you've empowered them. They've been skilled. You see what I'm saying? So that's a project that is sustainable. But when you are looking at projects that are really not sustainable, again, what do we do? If you are getting facility from China, on what do we spend it? Modular refinery. Why do we as government want to run refineries? Why not private sector? Why? Why don't we encourage private sector investment in refining? The one we've had, what has been our history with regards management? What has been our history? Why can't Nigerian government encourage private individuals to come, put policies that will favor both parties, us as Nigerians and the investors? Because people are in business to make profit. That's the truth. They are not in business to run charity. That's the. So how do we encourage more people to get to government? And you see, to get to business. And when they get to business, what happens? They have more employment. The economy opens up, etc., etc. So that's what I think we should do as a people. That is the attention we should also give to what we are talking. Imagine rail connection is going on simultaneously everywhere in Nigeria. If you have rail, you have power, and you have housing going on. If you are unemployed, we will ask you questions if you are not lazy. Listen to this. To build a house, to build, say, a 3-bedroom flat or 20 rooms housing unit, say 2 floors or 3 floors, to build it, how many masons do we need? How many people, how many drums of water do we need? How many bags of cement do we need? The cement will not use forklift or whatever we call it from the factory we have bought it or the shop we bought it and just pour it. Somebody will have to carry it. That's labor. Somebody will have to mix the cement with sand. Somebody will mold blocks. These are kind of jobs. And look at all these jobs. They are jobs that are targeted at the grassroots, targeted at the poor. They are not targeted at the rich. How many professors do you need to build a house? How many medical doctors do you need to build a house? How many architects? So you need them to do the mental work. But when it comes to the physical work, these guys are the people that will do it. So imagine that is one building. If you have 50,000 of that, imagine you have government that want to deliver 3 million of those housing units in 2 years. So where will unemployment be? Because for one, you need between 10 to 30 people. So you are talking about 2 million a year. An unemployment figure, you'll be looking for the unemployment. So what value would that have created? Those who are living in shanty houses, their house will be converted. Are there policies that can support us? We have some policy, but there are a lot of bottlenecks. For instance, estate developers, they are not government. To get EDL loan with FMBN is a lot of issues. It's been marred with corruption in the previous dispensations. So FMBN, Federal Mortgage Bank, is also scared of releasing funds. Then you have off-takers getting loan or having equity contribution of about, you say 10%, 20%, 30%, the case may be, for housing to work. There are a lot of policies, issues that is not making this work. Somebody wants a house of 5 million naira. His salary is 50,000 naira. You ask him to contribute 500,000 naira. That means he must earn his salary for 10 months and doing nothing and pay it as initial contribution. And from following months, you start reducing. So why will it not be corrupt to raise such money? Do you get what I'm saying? Yes. But if there is a way we can help people get to this scheme without necessarily paying impossible equity contribution of 30% in some cases. If you need 15 million, you pay 30%. 30% of 15 million is almost 5 million naira. Where will the person? The person has 200,000. Where will he get it from? So, but when we make this policy, it becomes easier for people who are contributors to National Housing Fund to access housing. And that's why you see a lot of projects, they are empty. Housing gap numbering at about 20 million. Growing at about 860,000 per annum. How much of this have we reduced? Maybe not so much. So, for you to lead people out of poverty, one thing will be evident, and all will be convinced that even if you don't call us developed, we know we are developing.
Okay.
That will be evident.
Okay.
But can you say today that perhaps in the last 3 years or in the last 8 years, we have made policies that will make other countries of the world to say these guys or this country is moving towards development?
Okay.
Can you convince? Are we convinced as a people? What can we see to push us in that area?
Well, if you were to go back to China and say, look, this is how did these people end up moving from an 80% ratings in terms of poverty to 2%? How did they do that? And one of the things they said, one of the things that has been highlighted for what they did in terms of moving from poverty to a sufficient economy is the fact that they experimented. That they tried a number of policies, especially at the grassroots level, and if it worked, they now escalate it to the national level. And you can see a certain similarity, if you like, in terms of experimentation. Even though we do it, Nigeria, we do it not as a matter of course, but because administrations change, and then you have a whole lot of schemes coming up. But we're experimenting. Is it that we're getting it wrong in terms of how we're experimenting,
Now,
or sustaining that model is not working for us.
Trial by error is different from trial by success.
All right.
We are running trial by error. If somebody has developed a wheel, you don't need to reinvent it. The wheel has been invented. China had given conditional cash transfer to people. It failed. China now felt that we need to make policy. President Obama did not say we Americans will not do what China did. President Obama knew what works. For you to bring back jobs at home, the other countries must start consuming what you produce. And the kind of car America was selling was bogus. The tires were too big. Ford cars. They were not efficient. They remolded Ford. Check Ford you bought in the 90s and Ford you bought when Obama was there. They were two different products, although the same logo. So, to empower all of these things, you need to empower the local industry for more people to come on board. So that's how you can snatch your job back. That's the truth. Imagine the number of people that will listen to us from their car, the car tape in their cars. Imagine the number of people listening to us from that. That's the number of jobs we are creating in the countries that make those car tapes. Imagine the number of people that are wearing clothes as we are talking, and most of the clothes are not in Nigeria. The more you wear the clothes, the more jobs you sustain in those places.